Okay. Hello, Pratap Bhai. Um, we're delighted to have you. Lots to think about, but I have one other very important question to ask you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Uh, often, often I have heard that, uh, oh, if you can have control over your ego, or you can remove your ego, or you can take away your ego,
Mm-hmm.
then you will progress on this spiritual path. And to me, on the other hand, ego is often associated with being arrogant,
Mm.
uh, feeling proud. So I'm not very sure where all this is put together
Mm.
in the context of our spiritual path. So
Mm.
can you explain to us what is this ego?
Sure, yeah. The way I understand that it's very important to understand what we really, really mean by ego in our experience. What you said that generally people on the spiritual path, particularly, they emphasize that we should not have ego. But what exactly is this ego? So let's look into it together and you see whether it makes any sense. As I understand that when I talk about something, when anybody talks about something, it is always they speak their mind. They speak their mind, meaning the content of the mind, which is all the knowledge that person has gathered in terms of all the physical the knowledge of physics, chemistry, cooking, this and that, which we call functional knowledge as memory. So is also another kind of a knowledge which becomes a memory. Is this opinions, the belief, uh, um, whatever you say, all
Yes.
those things also is a psychological kind of a knowledge memory. So now, when the people speak, it's the mind speaks, so to speak. But how can the mind speak? So what happens is that when I say I am engineer, for example, then they identify with this knowledge, engineering knowledge, and then say I am engineer. So actually, what happens in your experience, as soon as you say who are you, then we say I am engineer. Now the awareness shows the content of the mind which has this engineering knowledge, and out of that a sense of me being an engineer is derived, and then that is talked about.
Hmm.
And it's always going to be like that. When a person speaks, he speaks his mind, and he identifies with the memory that is relevant for that talk, and he says I am this or I am that and all that. Now that is a sense derived from the mind, content of the mind, just for purpose of speaking. But what happens that the person then start believing that this sense of me is the reality of him or her,
Hmm.
and that separates that person from the rest of the humanity. Now this is the separation, the experience of being separate, and then talking about is called the ego. Sense of me derived from the mind is ego.
Okay.
So when you hear that I should not have ego, the spiritual discourses say you should not have ego. People say, okay, I should not have ego. That means I should not have pride. I should not have arrogance. I should not have this. I should not have that. But I, as a separate, is still there. That is not understood. So then what happens that even though you try to remove that, but the sense of separation doesn't go away.
Correct, correct.
Until we understand the sense of separation, has to be used as just for communication. And then it goes back.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's the real meaning of not having ego, not having that sense
You,
of separation.
you said it.
Uh-huh. So I'm trying to think in practical terms. I have to refer to myself as a dentist. I mean, how can I avoid saying that? So, is there any practical value of having this false sense of me?
It is false in that one, it is false in the sense that we take that as a real me. My identification is this,
Mm-hmm.
a dentist or husband or wife, this or that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my real, Indian or American or this or that, right? That's my identity. But it's true. That is what the person thinks. It is true. I am Indian. I am American. I am engineer. I am this or that. And he believes that is true. So if we understand that it is true in the sense that you can use it as your tool to communicate with our person, and know that knowing is going to make you free from unnecessarily use of that, or you won't defend your opinions or belief and all that, because you know that all these opinions and beliefs is not you. It's just for sharing with others, because just as you are, the other person is also bringing the content of his or her mind to the table for us to share. The one way of sharing is this sense of me. So if you know that this is not my master, this is not my reality, this is only a tool that I, as awareness, is going to use through this mind body, just as the other person is using that same awareness, is using that other person's content to
Through his.
represent that person. Then it's a big liberation, you know, that if there is no sense of me, for example, in the night and when you go to deep sleep, is there a sense of me, ego?
No.
So
This,
if there is nothing, then that's so much peace, isn't it?
but you're sleeping that time. When you're awake and to have to not have that sense of me in spite of someone saying something bad to you or hurting your feelings, that sense of me appears. I feel hurt. I feel like he has offended
When
me.
are you sleeping? It appears
No, in the daytime.
in the daytime. That's what I'm saying. That in the daytime, this, without we knowing it, this me comes. At that time, you don't remember that this me is nothing but the content of the mind identifying, and
Yes.
I'm talking about it.
So how do you
When you understand,
realize this?
when one understands that this ego that I know is only my tool, then you can find your freedom from the wrong use of the tool.
Tool. I hear you. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then nothing will offend you, nothing will hurt you, really.
Nothing will offend you in the sense that when you hear something like that,
Yes.
then there will be a big pause versus automatic reaction, because now we think that we are this
Yes.
and the other person is violating something. But then with this understanding, there comes a pause. And in that pause, you can see very clearly that, oh, it's a sense of me. It's nothing to do with me. So your response now will come from this knowing the truth of the me versus not knowing.
Very true.
And over the time, gradually, you will find that you don't even need to pause, because that becomes your first nature. Right now, your first nature was automatic response, because you thought I'm an individual.
Yes,
How can we
yes.
say that?
Yes.
And now it slows down first, and then over time
Beautiful. Makes a lot of sense, but this has prompted another question. And although we were trying to wind up our series, I'm going to have you come back for one last, but again, quite a troubling question, whose answer we
Sure.
wish you can give us. Okay?
Sure, sure.
So, with that, thank you again, Pratap bhai.
Thank you
Yes.
for having me here for all this series. Oh, I wanted to say, થયું બંધ?
આ બંધ નથી થતું હવે. આ કોઈકે મેસેજ મૂક્યો જ ને.